So this video is about your speech of introduction. A speech of introduction is a common form of public speech. It's a speech that introduces you to your audience. This may be a business audience if you're a new hire. Maybe you're a consultant who's coming in to work with a company and you're introducing yourself to the employees there. It might be a sales pitch where you're introducing yourself as you describe a new product. It might be a new organization that you're joining. A lot of clubs require this: sororities, fraternities, sports organizations, sports teams. Or if you're running for office, if you're getting into politics, a speech of introduction can tell people why they should vote for you. And it's not just the words you tell us that will make us decide whether to vote for you or not, whether to buy your product or not, whether to welcome you into the team or not. It's the way you deliver that speech. We call that building ethos. That's the perceived goodwill as the audience perceives you having goodwill toward them. Whether you're a good, trustworthy, reliable person. These are things that your audience is looking for and that a speech of introduction will provide for you. One great thing about a speech of introduction is that you don't have to research it. You're introducing yourself. You are the world's foremost expert on you. You know more about yourself than your parents, your siblings, even if you have a twin. You know more about yourself than your twin knows about you. So this is a chance for you to tell us about you, to help us get to know you so that we'll trust you when you tell us other things down the road in your informative speech and your persuasive speech, which are coming up later in the semester. So what do? You've got to squeeze 18 to 22 years into 5 to 7 minutes. What do you talk about? Well, the number one rule is keep it real. Don't try to BS us. Be honest about who you are. And I've had many students over the years that have really shocked their classmates. They've shocked me and their classmates. So don't lie. It doesn't mean you have to tell us every detail about your life. The most personal things, you don't have to reveal those things. You can, but you don't have to. I would suggest it might actually be easier to reveal those deeply personal things in a classroom setting than speaking to a camera. Maybe not. Maybe that's just me. But at least you can judge the audience's reactions when you're in a room with them. You can't see that when you're doing it on a camera. You can't see how the audience is reacting to what you're saying. That's a huge drawback to online public speaking. Now, I should say that over the years, I've had many, many students who have revealed some really personal, deep things. I've had students who have talked about how they came out as gay. One of them said his dad wanted to hurt him. I've had other students talk about being sexually assaulted, graphic details. I've had students talk about how they're embarrassed to say it, but they didn't know their mom because she was in jail. She was thinking she was the only person in the classroom who'd ever had a parent go to jail, because we always assume everybody else has their lives together, don't we? We always assume we're the only ones that have problems. This is not the case. So when that girl gave her speech, 2 other people in the class said, yeah, my dad was in jail too, or my mom was in jail too. So I know, and she was stunned, but that's the reality. People have shared and similar experiences, but we don't know that about each other unless we reveal it. I had another student, and this one, I was almost crying when she told us this, but she told us she was 19 years old and her mother had a stroke, and at 19 years of age, she had to decide to pull the plug on her mom in a hospital room, and she did. And I still, I should turn the lights off so you can't see my eyes, but yeah. So people can talk about things that are deeply, deeply personal. Now that said, you don't have to. I've had many other students who talk about, I grew up playing soccer. Soccer's my whole life. I played on this team when I was 5. I played on this team when I was 12. I played on this team and now I have a scholarship here. Or I was into dance. I got into dance and then I went into cheerleading and then I went into sports. Or, yeah, this is me. This is my family. This is our cabin up on some lake up north. and this is my life. All right. So you can be as shallow and superficial as you want, or you can be as personal and in-depth from the heart as you want. Whichever way you do it, it has to be sincere, it has to be genuine, it has to be you. And so if you're revealing yourself and introducing yourself, people respect that. All right? People want to know, hey, this person's willing to share these deep things with me. I can trust that person. All right? So you should do that when you design your speech. It doesn't have to be the painful things that you're really embarrassed about. Don't do that if you don't want to. You don't have to. But whatever you do, be honest. Reveal as much about yourself as you feel comfortable doing. Now, how do you organize this speech about yourself? One, you should have a theme. In the sample speech I gave you, which is online, you can see an outline for this, and the theme is, I'm a good person. All right? That's totally a fake speech, by the way. I don't know if you knew this, but I've never rescued a dog that got hit by a car. I have had dogs and cats. I don't currently because my son has allergies. But I never walk old people across the street at Livernois and McNichols. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's not a retirement home over there. But every semester when I'm on campus, I ask my students to raise their hand. How many of you have seen me walking people across the street? And I always get 2 or 3 people that raise their hand. It's kind of funny. But that's a totally made-up speech. I just made this up as an example. But that's my theme. The theme was, I'm a good person, and then I backed it up with evidence, which is called evidence or supporting materials. And the supporting materials are examples and stories that I give, which provide information to the audience. One thing I will say is be specific about that. I've had other students who have said things like, oh yeah, we all know that siblings can fight sometimes, right? Or, oh yeah, I'm sure you guys have had, anybody that's a middle child knows that it's not easy, right? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. We don't know what you're saying. Give concrete, specific examples that bring it home to us. Stories and examples really, really help. And if you can try to relate the speech to other people in the class, do so. It's always good to be able to relate what you're saying to other people in the class. I'm going to talk about 2 traditional speech designs. The traditional design, which has a thesis statement and 3 main points, and a narrative design. Those are the 2 basic ways that I teach my students to design a speech. All right? And there's other ways, and we can talk about those when we get in, especially to persuasive speaking. We can talk about other designs as we get into that. But your thesis statement is the main point or the main theme of your speech. So if you have 3 main points to back up your thesis, that's a traditional design. In my sample speech, I said my thesis is I'm a good person, and my evidence is what? I love animals, I love old people, and I volunteer every week. And each of those main points is backed up by other supporting material. All right, facts, statistics, stories, narratives, testimony, all of those things work. So examples are great ways to help people understand as well. But a narrative design is another way to do this. And a narrative design is a speech based primarily on a long story. So it's a story that has a message. It's a story that has a moral to it. It's a story that has a lesson that we can learn at the end. And so for a narrative design speech, we use what's called a prologue at the beginning, which kind of gives us a little introduction and tells us what to expect. It should also still start with a good attention grabber. And then we give the body of the speech is the narrative. It's the main story that drives us through and carries us through from beginning to end. And then the epilogue is kind of a summary of that story, but not just a summary, but it's also summarizing what we've learned, the moral to the story, the main point. So here's the story I've told you, here's the takeaway. That's the way we do a narrative design speech. So your speech of introduction can be either one of these methods, the traditional 3-point method or the narrative design structure when you're designing your speech.